Last week on Figure It Outie, but how the heck do you do that? How do you make air move faster and not change pipe diameter? Well, you do it with one of these. This is a Bellmouth velocity stack. It did work. 263 grams per second. That's awesome. That actually represents a 3% increase from my old personal best. So it's experimentation time. I am very, very pleased with how that just turned out. It's 2 days later to lean both banks. Yes, sir. Observe as we open the glove box. It'll just fall open. So natural, so nice. It all kind of comes together in the end, you know? Welcome back. Let's pick up exactly where we just left off. So very nice in here. And before I move on to the door, and because the door is going to be open with the power on, I need to fix something that is annoying to, I'd say, every single 2000s to 2010 owner of an Audi. As soon as you key on the power, and I'm sitting in the seat, the door is closed, but my seatbelt is not on. Every 30 seconds or so, we hear... Hate it. And then, even when your seatbelt is on and you open the door... So let me fire up VCDS and let's try to end the suffering. From the home screen, we'll select Control Modules and go into Instruments. When the controller loads, we'll go to Coding. Before I change anything, I note down my current coding string 00233361. The option legend automatically appears to help you change the values. Down in the seatbelt warning section, it indicates with a question mark in the example code that we need to change the second last value with one of the 6 options. My current value is a 6 as the newest North American option that also chimes for the passenger seatbelt. Since I want no chime at all, I'll use 0 as the value. So I change the second last digit to a 0, click Do It, which is accepted, and I'll close out VCDS entirely. So that did work. And I just want to show you something. So without my seatbelt on, 2 things are happening. First of all, the indicator is gone entirely, which is exactly what that piece of coding did. But of course, that also removed the chime at the same time. I think that result was both good and bad. Good in the sense that, of course, the chime was gone, but bad because I think it's actually useful to have the little indicator on the dash to remind you visually that your seatbelt isn't on. It'd be nice if it was chime off, indicator on. So just for experimentation's sake here, I'm going to change something. I'm going to put all these seatbelt indicators back on, so undo what I just did. And then I'm going to do the change that most people do, which is actually change the country code from Canada to Germany. Back now in the instrument controller, you'll see my chime value in the second last spot is back to a 6. This time, noting that the country code is updated using the third last digit, I'll change my 3 representing Canada to a 0 for Germany. I've saved the code and closed VCDS again. Where we're at now is key on. And as you can see, the seatbelt indicator is on, and trust me when I say it beeps, but I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Now, whereas before, at this point when I opened the door, it made the door chime. Now there's no chime. So I think rationale would have it that if we keep country, Germany, seatbelt chime off, I should be able to achieve everything I want. You know the drill. This is just proof that my final code string is 0023001. So here's the final test. Power on. Good. No seat chime, and granted, no indicator either, but that's okay. We can live with that. And now I'll go ahead and open the door. Oh, yes. Finally, silence. And now I can show you what's bothering me about the driver's door. To appreciate my complaint, you also have to remember there are 2 states to the switches on all the doors actually. You might know this by muscle memory, but maybe not explicitly. There is a half click and a full click to every single button, both up and down. So one little press in slightly here would normally just lower the window until you let it go, and then it would stop. But if you do the full press down, it would automatically roll the window all the way down. But when I actually use the switches, it doesn't always act like that. And I don't think it's my fault. I think the switch panel might be getting a little bit worn out, but I'll show you what I mean. So here is my half click in. Nothing, right? Here's a firmer push down. So my full roll down will work. And a 1 click up. That's pretty good. I can do full click up. Let's try the 1 click down again. Not so much. I can kind of work at it. Oh, it's kind of coming alive. A little bit, right? The window actually just juddered there and went up a touch. So something is definitely funky going on with the driver switch here. So here is the passenger. These are just my simple little modulated rolls. Full roll. Oh, a full roll doesn't actually always work 100% either. And realistically, that's not surprising because if you can imagine the lifetime use of these buttons, the front two windows would have to be used more often than not. So although I always try to preach diagnosis before shooting the parts cannon, in this case, I am going to shoot the parts cannon. I've got myself a new little set of switches here, and we're going to pop them in and see if it helps. Now, obviously, these switches can't be dropped in from above. I have to remove the door card to get this done. So I'm going to do that. Again, this is not a DIY video, so forgive me. I'm just going to go ahead and struggle through this, and when I'm done, I'll point out kind of what had to come off where and where the tricky bits were, and we'll get on with the project. As it turns out, it is pretty easy. It only took me, I don't know, 10 minutes to do this. So first, to get the carbon fiber trim out, you just kind of come in here with the trim tool and pop out sort of the fat side, and then you carefully just kind of like slowly lift it out. There are 4 little pegs that hold it into place, and then there's a hook on the far side. So once you get that last peg out, you sort of just like carefully slide it out towards the fat end, and then that reveals a couple of screw holes. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 screws you take out, and then under this part you pop off this little plastic panel, kind of like lift it and scoop it out. 2 more screws in there, and then 1 more screw in the bottom, and then, you know, I put some larger pry tools in here, slowly just like pop, pop, another clip, and then slowly just like lift the whole panel up towards the glass, and it's off. On the back, there are 2 connectors you have to look out for. This one is sort of like a hinge fashion, exactly like what's on your ECU if you've ever removed that. So it sort of both moves and pivots at the same time. And then there's just a little guy on the speaker. By far the riskiest part of messing around with your door cards are these clips right here. And I miraculously did not break any of them out of the 6. But they do often fail to the point where I went ahead and prepared and got a whole bag of them just in case. And they are sitting in these little towers right here. But what's important about them is that they actually hold the door card really nice and tight to the inside of the door. So they are responsible for that nice final fit and finish. Anyways, we can get back to the task at hand. And theoretically, and I can tell this because of the master switch that I have on the bench, I can tell that there are little tabs up here and down here. And you would spend a hell of a lot of time with a pick set trying to like depress these little tabs and lift up the other plastic and try to shimmy this thing out. Or I can just take off the entire armrest. So it's just these screws here, it'll come off the front, and then it'll be way easier to work on this. I uncovered something gross, but not surprising. So unlike any other part of the door that I took apart or this armrest, you know, it's clean except for this. Not surprisingly, right under the switches, because when you lift them up, they are kind of like open to the inside of the door card a little bit. Look at all the crud that falls down in there. It is so very easy to work with it when it's apart like this, but this looks a little weird, right? Why did I take out the mirror switch from there instead of removing these so I could put this in? Well, it is because I have a new one of these too from the factory. I noticed a while back that my normal one here was kind of scratched up and the finish wasn't right. So really from the factory, it's supposed to be a bit of this like matte and almost like textured feel. I know you don't have texto-vision through YouTube, but like there's like a bit of a like rubbery grip to it. Go around your car and compare all these little panels from your driver's and your passenger and your rear doors. You will notice that your driver's side one is almost shiny from being worn down. Kaboom! Went together so easily, as is the case when you're working with brand new parts. I also cleaned out all these little parts. So in between these sections here, and then especially before the armrest went back on the door card, I cleaned up all the jet gray leather as well because stuff gets kind of trapped in all these little edges back here. It's looking really good, but of course, again, later we'll be doing a full interior detailing anyways. And as for this,
in the bin.
But before I congratulate myself too much, I'm gonna go ahead and just connect my main connector here again, hold the door card off the door, and let's test out these switches, make sure it actually works. Okay, now that we have power, observe my greatness. Half click. Full click up. Yes. Passenger 1 click. Full click. I'm the smartest man alive. So at this point, I could just put the door panel back on, but with it off, I'm kind of already halfway to removing a mirror. So back in the day, and I'm talking about, I don't know, early 2000s and before that, it was a given that on all S cars, you got an actual solid aluminum mirror, which is exactly the case on my D2 S8. And although it looks not too bad, I think it's maybe more of an urban myth than it is an actual documented case of which cars got what. But keep in mind, the 25 Quattro is for 2006, and most certainly from that year onwards on the B7s, you did not get solid aluminum mirrors. You have these plastic caps that are essentially like chrome painted. Chalk it up as one of those subtle, if you know things for Euro cars, but I really think it makes a huge difference when you see that bright, shiny kind of ear sticking out when a car rolls up. So years ago, I procured myself a set of the early B6 solid aluminum mirrors for the S4. That's going to look so good. And I'm sure you've already noticed the yellow tint on the glass here. Well, that's a good and bad sign. Good in the sense that these were deluxe models, so that means this is the anti-dazzle or anti-glare, so it automatically dims when there's a bright light in your rear view, so you don't get blinded. And it's heated, but obviously the downside is it fails. That yellowing is a bad thing. I'm not going to be able to explain it because honestly I don't fully understand the liquid myself, but suffice to say there is some sort of liquid that does that anti-dazzling in between two layers of glass here. And when it starts leaking out and going places it's not supposed to, or just essentially burning up, it turns into this yellow. So we're gonna have to do a little switcheroo here by removing the glass that I have in my mirrors and transplanting them onto the new ones. And I don't have the auto dimming glass because essentially it doesn't exist anymore. I'm sure there are maybe a few sets out there. I'm sure they would be extremely expensive. You can't get them from the dealer anymore. So if the next owner wants to hunt those down, power to you. In the meantime, I'm gonna make a very nice looking set of mirrors. So I imagine my next hour or so is gonna be messing around with this. I gotta pop off the speaker, fish the wire out for the mirror off the top, do the entire process out on the passenger side, get the mirrors out of here, and then before anything goes back in the way, I'm going to hit this with a little bit of aluminum polish. Nothing too crazy, just going to use a microfiber for it. I'm not going to use like a buffing wheel and go super crazy on this. I just want to clean them up a little bit nice. Then put the glass in, then put it all back on the car. A good 8 hours later of fiddling with the door panel and reassembling the card and cleaning things, we have the driver's side done, and I thought this was a good time to just stop and reflect on the difference between plastic versus aluminum. I did clean up the passenger side one for fairness of comparison here. You can tell there is a difference. Maybe not necessarily like the color, but the brightness for sure. The driver's side looks really good. And you know what? This is going to be one of those things where you'll probably notice it more than any other person. I'll say from the driving position, it kind of just gives you an extra little je ne sais quoi of strength and quality. The other thing about these mirrors is that you can polish them up like crazy. You can completely refinish them. I did not do that. I don't have the time or materials to take care of that. So as you can see, it will get pitted a little bit. But if you want to invest the time, you could clean this up to like a perfectly polished aluminum state. I forgot to mention this at the outset, but you can see this crease and a little bit of a crack right here on my old mirror. That is in part why I wanted to do this too. These plastic covers just don't have the internal strength to take big hits from the outside, which is not the case with the aluminum ones. I also didn't realize at the time how the auto dimming feature worked, so it actually all runs off of the rear view mirror. If you see this little green light right here, that means that the functionality is active and ready to work. So there is a sensor on this rear view mirror, and when it would detect something like someone's super bright headlights coming up behind you, this mirror would auto dim, and then so would the side mirrors at the same time. And before I move on to the passenger side, just kind of shout out to this area in general. Fresh switches, little grab handle here. Things turned out super nice. I'm very happy with the final finish. Also, my rear view mirror, it was always really wobbly in my hand when I went to adjust it, and that was after I got my windshield replaced at the dealer, and I never really put two and two together, but I finally figured it out, and I fixed it in a short that I made right here. I have one more change to make, this time on the rear of the car. But I just want to talk about the color motif of the vehicle at this point, because I think the Avis color is fantastic. Obviously that's picked up by the seats inside, and not that the old caps weren't already like a chromish color, but you know, we've got strong chrome pieces on here. But the one catch about this car is that a previous owner had debadged the car, or at least blacked out certain points of it. So these rear rings here, the rings up on the front grille, those are black too, but also the S4 emblem was removed. Now, I'm not generally a fan of debadging a car. I understand it can look cleaner in some ways, but I find it to be a little misleading with the 25 Quattro in specific, in both kind of like good and bad ways. There have been a few times where I've been out and someone says, hey, is that an RS4? Which I don't really blame them for, because, you know, the front bumper looks a little bit more aggressive. The color is one of those big things where people would only be used to be seeing it on an RS model car. but I don't want to pretend to be an RS4. That's not cool. And then on the downside is with the trunk debadged, sometimes people are like, oh, is that an A4? And, you know, part of my ego was hurt there too. We're like, no, it's not an A4. So to carry forward a little bit more of that chrome motif onto the rear end of the car again, and to clear up the confusion, yes, of course, I'm going to rebadge the trunk. Just as prep, I have washed this area, and then I also hit it with some clay bar. Side note, if you've never used a clay bar in your car before, definitely do it. The reason why I'm rubbing this like it's the fuzzy wall is that you would be amazed to feel how smooth the top finish of your car should actually be when it's totally clean. Minor problem though, there are no specific measurements online from anyone on the forums or otherwise that have measured out where exactly to put an emblem on the sedan. I've noticed that there are some for the Avant, but they're not the same, because I can actually see where the old one was decently well, but it also looks a little bit crooked, so I was looking for confirmation from somewhere to see where to place it. I actually even called Audi and said, do you guys have like templates for all your cars, or like how do you place them perfectly? And basically the parts desk person said, yeah, no, unless you're putting it on the factory with the actual like centering template that they use on all of the different body panels, we don't have anything else to help you guide it into place perfectly. Like I said though, I can see where it starts, so I'm going to use that as my basis point on the bottom left. But also the thing about the Germans they have to remember is that they're very intentional about absolutely everything. And more often than not, if you go look at your car, the emblems will be lined up with some other design feature on the car. And in this case, I know you can't see it, but the edge of the 4 essentially ends right by the taillight here. So basically I'm just going to anchor it on that corner, use a level, make sure it's straight, and that will be good enough. I'm sure it'll look great. Installed with precision. Buying a new emblem from Audi is actually pretty nice. If you have unbadged your car before, you'll know that the 4 essentially is not attached to anything, right? So if you're trying to stick it back on, now you're trying to figure out, well, where does the 4 go in relation to the S? But when you buy the part from Audi, it comes in this little sticky window essentially. So you pull off the wax backing so that it reveals the stickiness on the back of the badges themselves. You place it with the window, and then right now, since I've pushed it all down nice and firm, I should be able to just peel this off. Ooh, yes. When I finally get to the exterior detailing, this car is going to look like $1,000,000. So I will get to work on the interior. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you. This isn't a DIY like detailing channel. It's not really what I'm all about, but I did want to show you the tools of my trade. I'm just a regular Joe when it comes to detailing, so I use what I consider to be sort of like middle of the road products. I use Chemical Guys stuff for pretty much everything. I think that it works well. It's, you know, average price. It's not too bad. I'm going to give all the leather a good cleaning and conditioning. I've got a few other products that smell good and work well. These are some of the other things that I use. Picked up some interior detailing brushes for, you know, the cup holder and little vents and little tough to reach places. And then I also have a couple of, they're actually for shoes, for cleaning leather shoes, but horsehair brushes that are good for scrubbing in the little cracks of leather. Obviously, I have a whole bunch of microfibers, and these are not all of them. Got a big bag. Tend to go through a whole lot of those when you're cleaning an interior. After the interior, of course, I will do the exterior as well, none of which is going to be in this or any video. It's just not anything really anyone needs to see. But in the final and very, very last video of the S4 you'll ever see, it's essentially going to be the for sale video where the car is looking so good inside and out. And I'll be doing a full walk around, essentially talking about what makes the 25 Quattro unique, some of the history of my particular car, full build list of everything that has ever been done under my ownership or not on the car, and then we'll probably just go for a drive, and that's that. And with that, we are done. Again, the usual reminders. Always check the description of the video for every tool, product, consumable good, part number, anything that you've seen me use, it's always there. And check out the join button under this video or on the homepage to learn more about the 4 Rings Club. And for the love of the algorithm gods, please throw me a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.